Be the right club. Be the right club today. Yes!
Again, has to be careful of the speed.
What a comeback season for Hal Sutton.
Come right back toward the hole. How about in? That's the second eagle he's made it for this week.
17 years later, Hal Sutton is the Players' Champion.
He's got it going right at the flagstick. It'll be up. It is.
Hey everybody, welcome to another Be the Right Club Today podcast. Hal, we got a pretty special guest on for this week.
Yeah, we do. I'm happy that he agreed to do this. He and I go back a long ways and played in the President's Cup together as partners. Played a lot of golf with him. One of the greatest players of all time.
One of the most unique and studied golf swings of all time, Mr. 58, Jim Furyk.
Yeah.
Did you play any Ryder Cups with Jim? I mean, you obviously were on the same team, but were you guys paired together?
Never paired together at the Ryder Cup.
Yeah.
Just at the President's Cup. But, I've spent a lot of time around Jim. I mean, one of the things he mentions in there is how he and I and Langer, we were all with Spalding, Hogan, and we compared notes about everything. Jim and I talked a lot back in the day,
Similar, you hit a little further, but similar kind of styles of play, relied on very accurate ball striking.
Well, as he says in the podcast here, he came out there known as a chipper and a putter, and he's elevated his ball striking.
Yeah.
Back whenever I was playing with him, he was really unbelievable short game.
Yeah.
And improving with his golf swing.
That's right. You forget, I think early on, he was one of the best bunker players out there. Him and Azinger were always known as like two of the best bunker players, right?
Yeah. I mean, Jim talked about on there, and I mean, I felt envious in a way when he said, he was unheralded basically when he came out of college, and he was allowed to just mature at his own pace because nobody had any expectations. Well, I was on the opposite end of that, and there was a lot more pressure on the side that I was living under than him. And I recognize that was very important to him, that he was able to develop at his own pace rather than at the media's pace, the world's pace.
Like I like to say, he was able to marinate. He was able to not get out past his shoes.
Before we get started with this, he's the fourth leading money winner of all time with $71.5 million. And, when you look at Jim's swing, at one point in here, I said something to him about his dad and his relationship and how, most people would not have seen that as, it's unconventional.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to say something that felt rude to him, but, he's had other people say things to him about his golf swing.
Sure.
And, I think probably in my mind, I have as much respect for him as anybody in the game because they had the foresight to never change.
Mm.
And he saw it out through the end. He's won 29 times, I think. And what a great player he's been. He's a great player. And you will get that in this in this podcast. You'll understand what being a great player really is.
Well, it was an awesome interview. It was an awesome discussion. One of the best players to ever play the game. You guys enjoyed Jim Furyk.
All right, our next guest on the Be the Right Club Today podcast is Mr. Jim Furyk. Jim's he's fourth all-time leading money winner on the PGA Tour, 29 total wins. He holds the record for the lowest round ever on the PGA Tour with the nickname of Mr. 58. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate it. It's nice to be on.
Well, Jim, let's get right into it. You've had so much success with only your dad as an instructor. A couple of things. Tell us about that relationship, and then have you ever seen anybody else?
Dad sent me to a few people when I was younger, as far as I think just having another set of eyes. Maybe knew some great teachers. I grew up in the Philadelphia area, knew some great teachers in Philly. Thought there was a few guys that had some nice things to offer, maybe a different way of looking at things or teaching me. And I think he also wanted, maybe a couple teachers to look just to make sure he was on the right track as well. But for the most part, it was either always under his watchful eye or folks that he kind of sent me to. So, but for the most part, I mean, 99% of my lessons in my golf have come through Dad.
Yeah. So we teach a lot of kids in here, and sometimes the dynamics of parents and kids are difficult. So talk about your relationship with your dad and how it's been through the years.
Well, we're very close, and we always have been. But as you know, it's difficult to teach someone you love, a husband, wife, a son, father. It can be an interesting dynamic, and I think we've gotten so much better at it over the years. In the last 5 to 10 years have been super easy. But when I was a kid, I was probably very difficult to teach at times, like most kids are. If Dad sent me for a lesson to another golf professional, of course I was polite, yes sir, no sir, listened to everything they said, would never, dare talk back or question an authority. But when you're when you're in that parent-child relationship, a child always questions. I would speak to him in a manner that I wouldn't speak to another adult or a teacher, and not like I was a bad kid, but it was an interesting dynamic, and we got into our knockdown, drag 'em out arguments. And I can remember being in a junior tournament, and there were some folks watching him give me a lesson, and they had a bet on whether he was actually just my teacher or whether he was my father and my teacher. And so we definitely got in our share of arguments, and I kind of looked at it. When I was a kid, I thought they were kind of all his fault. You look, and he was just being hard on me and harder on me than he would be on another student. And then I got to college, and I thought a couple of them were probably my fault. And then I was a young pro, and I thought, a fair amount were maybe my fault. And then I can distinctly remember being in Ponte Vedra at Sawgrass Country Club, and my 8-year-old boy wanted me to give him a lesson. I took him to the golf course, and I was trying to kind of help him out a little bit. And he really wanted no part of it. He was being very difficult, was not very teachable, wasn't taking really any instruction very well. And I kind of had that moment of clarity where I went, well, I'll be damned. All those arguments with my dad were probably they were my damn fault, like every one of them. And I was like, it's just kind of coming full circle and biting me in the rear end right now. So it's made us a lot closer over the years, and I have a really great relationship with both Mom and Dad. And, I'm very thankful for that and how close I am and how much love and support they've given me throughout the years. And I'm not trying to paint a picture that I was a terrible kid or a very difficult kid. I just think there's always that dynamic, as you said, and it's very difficult to maybe take a lesson from someone you love so much, and vice versa, harder to give a lesson probably too. So, I've tried to really step back. My boy's just a recreational golfer. I've tried to really step back and just let him play and have fun. And eventually he'll get frustrated, or eventually he'll want instruction, come to me and ask for advice. And then it's pretty darn easy to maybe throw in a couple things to work on and let him go with it. But, it's hard. And so for fathers and sons and golf professionals and pupils that have done it out there, they understand. They know how difficult it can be.
My 3, 4, and 6-year-old already tell me, Daddy, I'll do it. So I can't imagine how they're gonna be 10 years from now. I'm gonna need to take really good notes. We joke a lot on here too, like 20% of the time our goal is to fix these kids' golf swings or mental game on the golf course. 80% of the time it's to make sure the parent-child relationship is really good. So or is where it needs to be, because it's difficult to do that. Jim,
well, I'll say that, I'll add to this. I'm thankful that my dad, it wasn't important to him that I became a great player or that I worked that hard, or it was basically, he would let me know what I needed to do to become a better player. But no, he was a salesman traveling on the road. He wasn't watching over me every day or making me go practice or play golf. That was all me. And I think most parents have to realize that, you can't build a Tiger Woods, right? You can show them how to get better, and you can give them the blessing of the game of golf and, how to play it. But if, to become a great player, that's something that they have to kind of have genuinely in their heart. And they're going to have to want to work that hard and enjoy that work along the way. You can't make that happen.
Couldn't agree with you more on that.
Yep. So, Jim,
go ahead, Chase.
Sorry, Hal. So, Jim, you've obviously had, one of the most successful careers of anybody to ever play the game. And, we talk a lot on here about mindset and the importance of pre-shot routine, commitment, et cetera. Talk about your pre-shot routine and how you commit to every shot.
Well, first and foremost, no one commits to every shot. I mean, we try to, right? That's the goal. But, we're all going to have a little bit of doubt once in a while. We're all going to, maybe not be very, not commit fully. And we're human. We're going to make mistakes. I think that one of the things I did in my career and still do in my career is I probably work as hard or harder than anyone else in the game on what I do before I ever draw the club back. And so trying to be very consistent and approaching the ball the same way, picking out a shot you want to hit, picking a club, committing to it. But what I do from the moment that I start walking to the ball, the steps that I take, how I approach the ball, how I enter, and then looking at my, everything on my setup, whether it's alignment, ball position, posture, grip, distance from ball, whatever it may be. I've worked really hard on trying to be extremely repetitive in that area. And I think, someone like Hal, who had a great golf swing, was a great ball striker, when he started going bad, I really don't believe his swing went bad very often, if that makes sense. There's a lot of amateurs or good players out there that one day they shoot one of their best rounds or they have one of their better ball striking rounds, and then the very next day they lose it, right? They all of a sudden, they totally lose it and they hit the ball terrible. And, I don't believe that someone like that loses their golf swing in a day. I think they're doing something, whether their mental approach has changed, whether, ball position, alignment, something's gotten off. And now you have to try to make an adjustment in your golf swing to make up for it. And, it feels like your golf swing's, basically left you. But in all honesty, I think you're just approaching the ball or doing something a little bit differently. And I've worked on that pre-shot routine and that repetitiveness and trying to get in that same position just for countless and countless and countless hours. And it's still, I get off, right? I get, some of my bad habits. I like to aim left. Early in my career, I like to aim left. I like to get the ball position too far back because of it. And then my golf swing would change, right? Get the club in behind me, try to help it back out to the right. Contact would change, start hitting the ball a little lower at times. I just, and so being aware of your bad habits and knowing I pretty much have the same 5 bad habits throughout my entire career. And when I'm not playing well, when I don't have my dad there to help and eyes, I kind of start running through the checklist. Well, these are normally the things that go wrong. And, and it basically all starts with everything I do before I even draw the club back. I'm not very mechanical in my swing.
Well, you've kind of answered this next question already, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it.
All right.
So I would not call your swing conventional, would you?
Nope, not at all.
Okay. So the reason why I ask you this is a lot of people today would have tried to change Jim Furyk's golf swing. And I know you get asked this before, but if you came in here at 10 or 12 years old or 13 or 14 and we tried to change your golf swing, I don't believe your golf swing made Jim Furyk. I believe your mental toughness, your commitment, and all the things you just talked about made Jim Furyk who he is today. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll go as far to say that if I went to someone early in my career who tried to break my golf swing down and made me look more textbook and like everyone else, I don't believe I would have had the career on the PGA Tour that I have, or that I had. I don't believe that I would have won more tournaments, or I don't think I would have won as many, to be honest with you. I think that it would have been counterproductive. And I do believe that the mental fortitude, I think the work ethic, the belief in yourself, the drive and the willpower to get up every morning and have that strive to get better, no matter how good or bad you're playing, just wake up every morning and the first thought to be, how am I going to get better today? Those are the things that lead to good careers. But my dad was always a firm believer. The reason I think my dad was a good teacher, and probably a very underrated teacher, is that I think good teachers relate to their students, and that everyone learns in a different way, right? Some people are more visual. Some people are more technical. Some people, Ben Crenshaw and Tom Kite do not learn in the same way. And
Right.
Mr. Penick had a fourth grade education, but he taught Ben through feel, and he taught Tom through mechanics. And I think the man was brilliant because he could talk both languages. He could teach different pupils in different manners. And my dad kind of has a knack of speaking with people, understanding how they learn, and he is very good at communicating and explaining to different pupils and manners that they understand. And so Dad learned early on that I wasn't very mechanical. I wasn't real good at trying to change my swing, and he firmly believed that what is natural is repeatable, and it's repeatable under pressure. And so we worked on my basics and the fundamentals. And my swing has definitely gotten, from the time you first saw me, Hal, when I was in my early to mid 20s, to now, my swing has got a lot better and a lot more technically sound. That's just over time and becoming a better ball striker and the strive for, to become a better player. But
well, you've always been a good player.
Well, but I've become a much better ball striker, I guess.
Okay.
Throughout my career. When I was 25, no one would have said I was a great ball striker. By the time I was 45, statistically speaking, my ball striking was probably one of my best stats.
Right.
And so I was always known as a short game and putting, and everyone just assumed that I wasn't a great ball striker because I looked different. But then as I got older and people started seeing, leading the tour, and like I led the PGA Tour in fairways hit and greens hit when I was 49 years old. It kind of, people took notice of things statistically as I got older, but my swing got a lot better and more sound. But why Dad was so smart was that he realized that I couldn't change, and he kind of instilled that confidence in me. If it's natural to you, you can repeat it, and you'll be able to repeat it under pressure. And he firmly believed that. He believed that if I had to break it down, start all over again, and tried to look, you've got a beautiful swing, Hal, but if I tried to look just like you, I don't know if I would have been able to repeat that under pressure, to be honest with you.
Well, I think one of the things, we have a lot of technology in here, and, somebody will come in here and say, I want to be 2 right on the path. And, I'll ask why. And, most of the time their answer is because I want to hit a push draw, basically. Well, that depends on where your club face is too. But
sure.
But at the same time, let's look for what's natural for you, what's easy for you to do, which is what you've been describing there. Most people want what the world says they should have instead
sure.
of what is natural to them.
Right. And I know that, I want to be the other way. I don't really follow too much on TrackMan or launch monitors, but I've had it done. I've been with Callaway. I've been on the equipment. I like to swing a little bit to the left side, and my perfect shot, the one that I love, is just a little bit of a pull cut. That's the one that just feels repeatable. I hit it, it starts a little bit left, and I know it has no way it's going left. And I feel like I take that left side out of play. That's my favorite golf shot. But, hey, some days you wake up in the morning and you're hitting a little bit of a block draw. And, you can fight it. You can try to hit that pull cut all day long, but it's just not there. Or you can just go play that push draw for the day and get it around and maybe shoot a really good number. So, I try to be versatile. I try to, work on being able to hit the ball both ways. If I need to cut it or draw it, hit it high, hit it low. But that one shot, like if you just said under pressure, you've got to make one swing. I want to stand up, kind of set up at my target or barely left of it and hit a little bit of a pull cut. That's the one that I just trust. And, under the gun, that's if I can hit that shot, that's the one I love.
So Jim, when you've kind of answered it, but I want to go a little further into it. So when you're off, you know, I'm more on the technical instruction side, and when, you know, I played at a fairly high level, but nowhere near you or Hal. Didn't play many tours, didn't quite make it. But a lot of people would ask, what would you do if Jim Furyk came and walked through the door? And I was like, my first question is, at what age? Because I kind of agree with Hal a little bit. Like, if we got you at 10 or 11, I think that you could have made the changes. At 25, no, you're too good. It's too late. Like, that's your motion. That's at least my personal belief. Because until we've just got videos and we've got the TrackMan Day, we've just got more information for us as coaches to be able to answer the questions versus kind of what we would say kind of guessing a little bit more.
Right.
But my question is, okay, so if you came in at 45 and you were struggling with your golf swing, one of the first things I would say is, do you have any video or any information of when it was really good? Like, how did it look?
Sure.
What was different? And so my question is, when you're off, you're from a mindset standpoint, you're good. You've gone through your 4 or 5 checkpoints. Your dad's not around, or even if he is around, what do you do? How do you kind of get the mechanics, the physical side back to, hitting it like you're capable of?
Well, I guess I'm putting something on the ground, and I'm starting on my setup, everything we talked about before, starting alignment, ball position, posture, distance from the ball, grip. I mean, I'm starting there and getting every fundamental I can. And then I'm do you want me to talk through some of the bad habits?
Yeah. I mean, did you ever get the video camera out and look at it and say, man, okay, I'm a little bit more vertical than I'd like to be in the backswing? Or do you even really care about that kind of stuff?
I don't, not at all. I would say that in the last 10 years, because we have technology and phones and whatever, I'll have my caddy stand behind me or 90 degrees of the target line and take some video, and I'll send that video back home. I mean, my dad's the one that's watched me throughout my career. He never taught me through video. I'm not sure, it's going to sound funny, I'm not sure I ever saw my swing on a video camera before I went to college, before I went to Arizona. I'm not sure I ever saw it while I was in college. I do remember seeing my swing in my second tour event, and I was on TV a lot that day because I was close to the lead, and they were replaying highlights on the news, and I was kind of watching my swing and kind of doing one of those going, feels a lot better than that, or feels different than that. But, what you say, the one thing you said that I really like and I agree with is, 25 is too late. I think once a good player and a good junior player goes to college, his swing by that point is pretty much his thumbprint. It's ingrained. You're going to make it better. You're going to refine it, but you're not going to totally change a swing at that point. 10 years old, you might be right, but I will promise you wouldn't have gotten a hold of me at 10 years old because I was playing football, basketball, and baseball, and I wasn't even playing golf. So I didn't start playing much golf until I was about 12 years old. And this is coming. My dad was a club pro. So he took me to play golf, and I goofed around with my dad, but I didn't play golf by myself on a golf course until I was 12 years old. And that was right after baseball ended and before football started. I mean, there was about a 2-month window that golf kind of fell into. And then every year from the age of 12, that golf season grew just a little bit. And I started, I quit football, then I quit baseball. I stuck with basketball because I grew up in cold weather and loved the game and could still play in the wintertime. But I just didn't, we never worked on my golf swing when I was 10. At that time, I was just, gripping it and flailing away and hitting the ball as far as I could, like most kids are.
So at what age did you know golf is my sport?
I'll tell you what, I signed up for freshman football in high school and not golf. And I kind of got hooked on tournament golf the summer before. And so going into 9th grade, I decided I was going to play some junior tournaments and signed up for some events in Philadelphia. And I set kind of a summer schedule up with my dad, and he kind of planned his sales calls around the courses I was going to be playing at. And I played 8 events that summer, and I won 6 of them. And I called the football coach and told him I was going out for the golf team, and played golf my freshman year instead. And so that was kind of like the first time I fell in love with the game, and I really fell in love with the competition, right? I enjoyed playing golf at that point with my friends, but in every other sport, you practice all week and you have games on the weekends, right? You practice, you enjoy it, but you really you're excited to go play a game. And that's what a golf tournament was for me, right? I got to practice during the week and kind of get ready. And then you go and test to see, and, sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't, but that's kind of where I really fell in love with golf was the competition, the competitive side in tournaments. And then, I played freshman baseball, and my dad kind of came to me in my sophomore year and said that, he had some friends in the business who had either kids or, nephews or folks, members that kids were, getting scholarships to play golf. They were playing college golf. And Dad kind of approached me and asked if I was interested, if that's something I may want to do. And I answered that yes, that I thought, that's something that I would like to try to do. And so we kind of set up a plan then from my sophomore year on of, maybe using the spring to get ready for summer golf, maybe trying to play some events outside of Pennsylvania, my sophomore and junior year, summer after sophomore year, summer after junior year, trying to attract the college coach's attention. And I ended up quitting baseball my sophomore year as well. So I don't know if I ever knew that golf was, I was very aware that, in the middle of high school that I was better at golf than I was at football, basketball, or baseball. I wasn't going to go play Division I football by any means. But, I never really thought to myself that, I wanted to play golf for a living, and I thought it would be cool to play the PGA Tour, but I never really said, oh yeah, I'm going to, I'm definitely good enough to do that. It was always just a matter of, I saw that a long time in the future and just tried to work hard for the next step, right? To try to do well in my state and to try to do well in some national junior tournaments, and then kind of build my way up in amateur golf, getting ready for college, and just tried to take it one step at a time and improve every year.
Jim, what's the most nervous you've ever been on the golf course?
Probably would have been at a Ryder Cup. And I'm trying to think, I always thought the singles in Ryder Cup were nerve-wracking, the singles matches. But all matches, that first tee shot, first tee shot of an alternate shot on one, or first tee shot of your first match, there's a huge build-up, massive gallery around one. And you're not really playing. Now you're not only playing for, you're playing for your country, for, 12 teammates, a captain that you usually adore. It's a different feeling. And I grew up in team sports and love team sports. And so I genuinely love the Ryder Cup because of that. But that also adds it can be an easing effect knowing that you have a team and support there, but it also can add a lot of pressure because you want to do so well, not only for yourself now, but for your team and your country. And so I would say the Ryder Cups for me have added even more pressure than, say, trying to win the US Open. I'd say the Ryder Cup probably was the pinnacle of that.
So just a quick follow-up to that. Because you've talked about the importance of your pre-shot routine and focus on that. When you got really nervous, how did you change breathing? What did you do different?
Well, my first negative reaction would be everything sped up. I made decisions quicker. I crunched the numbers quicker, made decisions quicker. If I watched video of a shot, what usually would take, 30 to 40 seconds would end up taking 20 to 25 seconds. Everything would speed up. And usually when that would happen, I would lose my rhythm, my timing, my tempo. My swing would speed up as well. That's, bad shots would come from that. I think you have to very, very rarely, especially, when Hal and I were younger, very rarely did you see a kid come out on the tour at 22. And then when you did, then even more rarely did you see him have success. We just weren't as mentally prepared. And I feel like you had to kind of take your lumps a little bit. And you kind of had to make the mistakes and then learn from them and then build your way up and kind of climb that mountain. And so one of the things I really noticed when I first got in contention on the PGA Tour, I was shocked at how many people were inside the ropes and TV and marshals and how much movement, how much noise. And it was like you had to direct traffic a little bit out there before you hit every shot, or you had to let traffic calm down before it was your turn. And I was definitely taken back by that. I mean, I enjoyed the process and I enjoyed the fact that I was playing so well, but it was a learning experience. And then the more often you put yourself in that situation, the more comfortable you are with it, the more comfortable the cameramen are around you. They know what you like, what you don't like. I was more capable of, if someone was in the way, to be able to nicely move them and feel comfortable before I hit a shot. So it was just I was a very raw, basically my first year out of college, I went to Q school. I got what's now a Korn Ferry card. I went back to Q school and got a PGA Tour card. I was very raw as a 23-year-old rookie. And, I had to kind of learn on the fly and take some lumps and I guess I was fortunate too, because I was pretty much, I was unheralded, I guess, coming out of college. No one really picked Jim Furyk to be the next great, college player turned pro. And so there was no expectations on me, which was actually really nice. I could kind of improve and do things at my own pace, at my own rate. And it actually happened fairly quickly for me that I became successful and won on the PGA Tour. But if I had come out of college and everyone just expected, or I was picked as the next, can't miss kid, the Phil Mickelson of my era, that'd have been really difficult for me because I just wasn't ready for it. And I kind of needed the time to improve at my own rate.
So I'm curious, you said you don't know much about, you don't use launch monitors. Do you even have one?
I do. I own a TrackMan. There's times I use that. I use it for wedge shots a lot. I use it for down and yardages for wedges. And I use it for when I'm, a lot of times in the fall and in the spring when, new equipment comes out. So if Callaway's got new drivers, new balls, I'll sneak off to the back of the range at home and use it there. But there's years where I use my TrackMan less than 10 times in a year. 10 days in a year. And then there's times where, I might have it out for 5 days in a row on the range. So, it's a little bit more, I enjoy it. I think the best name I've ever heard for launch monitors is the drama box. That's what the equipment reps on the PGA Tour call it. Causes a lot of drama.
Yeah.
When used properly, it can be a really effective tool. When not used properly, and I see it happen a lot, even at the tour level, it can cause a lot of grief. And actually, I think can be detrimental at times.
I would agree with you. So how much do you play on the regular tour now?
I played earlier this year in the spring. I think I played 7 events, but I haven't played since May 1.
Okay.
I don't plan on playing on the regular tour pretty much for the rest of this year. I'll be 95% of my golf will be on the Champions Tour from now on, and I'll cherry pick an event here and there. I don't foresee playing more than about 3 events on the PGA Tour a year.
So when you go out on the driving range on the PGA Tour, not on the Champions Tour, how many launch monitors does everybody have out there? Most everybody?
I would say at least 1 out of 3 guys has one. I would say most everyone owns a launch monitor. But when you're on the range, I would say 1 out of 3 players minimum is probably using one at any given moment.
Right.
50-50 probably at most. But, some guys are going to run out and warm up and not take it with them.
Right.
I rarely bring mine on the road. If I drive my own car to tournaments, I might throw it in there. Rarely do I carry it on a plane, but I have done it. If I'm doing some testing, or if I'm going to if I'm out west, I know I'm going to Carlsbad to do some testing with Callaway. I may throw it in there. Not that they don't have their own monitor, but I may throw it in there to work on it. Knowing I may grab a new driver, I might be playing a new ball. I'll take it with me to the next event just so I can kind of see numbers and see what's going on.
Jim, what with regards to TrackMan data, would you say most of the guys are looking more at ball data? It sounds like you're looking more at ball data than not as worried about what the club's doing, maybe outside of club head speed.
I'm looking all at ball data. I don't know. I don't talk a lot with other players. I think the guys that are using the Foresight are probably looking more at club data. The guys that are using TrackMan are probably using more ball data, I would imagine. What launch monitor do you use? I mean, being a teacher and loving the numbers, what do you use?
Yeah, we actually use them all. We've got 2 TrackMan here. We've got a quad, and then we've got a couple of them that are indoor only that go in the ceiling.
Gotcha. The quad's Foresight, right?
Yeah. So the quad. So to me, they're going to use the quad to see in a vacuum how far the ball is going to go, and then they're going to, like, Bryson's going to then check with his flight scoper with TrackMan to see how far it's going in real time. So they can kind of see, if you're up north, the ball is going to travel, depending on if you're in Colorado, TrackMan's going to say the ball is going further than quad will because of the altitude and the change. And so they're, again, the quad's based off of a photograph at contact. It's going to measure how it would go, again, in a vacuum. And then TrackMan's going to actually radar it to see where it lands.
Right. So my knowledge, and you can tell me if I'm wrong because there's a good chance, my knowledge is that TrackMan's kind of the industry standard on ball data and what the ball is doing. Yeah. And then the quad is, because it's taking a picture of the club, it's doing a good job of telling you the club dynamics, basically.
Yeah, and I would say the quad typically is a little better indoors because, again, the radar has to track the ball a certain amount of time, and the farther it tracks, the more accurate it is.
Understood.
I've always wondered, and we've asked some players, but I've always wondered just how deep a lot of these PGA Tour kids really know the numbers, and if they're even, they're even looking at path and face and all that stuff, or if they're just using it more so for a pure radar to see where the ball lands.
Well, I think a lot are, and I'm actually, like, it's an interesting conversation. I feel like now I'm going to interview you, which is probably not the idea of this whole podcast. But like, for a teacher, there's a lot of teachers that'll teach off of a TrackMan, and the TrackMan doesn't really know your club data. I mean, it's making a very educated guess using the ball data what the club's doing. But it would seem to me like, would you really want to teach off of club data off of TrackMan if it's not actually, it's not actual data, club data. It's ball data that they're extrapolating and saying, well, if the ball's doing this with all these different, this must be what the club is doing. Needless to say, I've had launch monitors side by side, same company, side by side, and I hit a shot and they give me very similar ball numbers, but very different club numbers. And that scares me to start using path and face angle. When one says that I'm hitting one up on it and the other one says I'm hitting one down on it, that's a major difference. And I've seen that.
Yeah, and it's a great point. And I think, one of the things, like with TrackMan, you've got to be a little bit careful at times with face, just like you said. Like, their path numbers and the swing direction numbers and some of that's really good. To me, it's more if you come in and you're fighting a little bit of a pull, or you're like the pull hook. The pull hook was a shot that kind of fooled, let's say, you guys' generation a little bit, because forever it was hold the lag and swing more to right field because everybody thought the left ball was an over-the-top left ball, but it really wasn't. It was a lot of times it could be a stuck underneath, club gets closed and it flips over. And like, I'll demonstrate with TrackMan, I'll hit a pull hook, and I'll hit a pull hook with a left path and a pull hook with a right path. So I'll go underneath and close the face and then come over it and close the face. And to me, it answers the miss. Why is your ball going where it is? And they might be different if you take one shot, but if you look at quad, TrackMan, flight scope, all these systems over their averages will be pretty close. Like,
pretty close.
Some of them will exaggerate a little bit. And I like the fact that you take your TrackMan to Callaway, because your TrackMan is going to read a little different than their TrackMan, and everything's just a little bit different. But
sure,
I think in general, over the course of 100 shots or 50 shots, and I think I would agree with this, how you can chime in, but there'll be outliers within it. Gear effect, hitting it off the heel will throw the numbers off. Hitting it off the toe will throw them off. But to me, I think it's great to answer, okay, if you're fighting a miss that you're not real sure about, obviously the club's closed to pull it, but is it a path issue? Is it a face issue? That's where TrackMan can at least help answer. And I'll always say this, it's more for the coach to read the numbers than the player. I really, truly believe that.
Right. And I've had 2 TrackMans right next to each other at Callaway, and I'm looking at the data on my phone and they're looking at the data, and we've had the spin numbers they're frightening close. Like, theirs will say 25-40, mine will say 25-42.
Nice.
I mean, it's unbelievable how tight and how good the numbers are. And so that's kind of I'm looking more at ball data than anything else. But I think the kids today, I think there's a lot of guys that are very aware of the mechanics of the swing and how the data relates to the ball flight. I think that whether they've been taught by their teachers, what to look for and how to use it, I think there's a lot of good, and I think there's a lot of knowledgeable players out there. I'm sure, like I said, there's always I think to strive for perfection is great, but that's why all those guys are on tour, because they strive for that perfection to become better. But sometimes it can cause a lot of drama, if that makes sense. You scratch your head sometimes where a guy's playing good, but he's still trying to change things, if that makes sense. And Hal, you've seen it a lot throughout your career, guys that were pretty good players, and I've got to do it this way because somebody says, when Rory first came out and apparently he was swinging pretty hard up on it, and so many, a bunch of degrees out to the right. There was a lot of players that went to their teacher and said, well, Rory drives it so good and so far, and he hits that high bombing draw, and that's what I want. So now I got to get, so many degrees up on it and so many degrees to the right, and I want to be just like that. Hey, if you can do that, great. But that was kind of natural for Rory, right? If that's not your natural move, you may end up going from being the 40th ranked player on tour to the 110th ranked player on tour real quick if you don't watch out.
Well, you said something earlier that I totally agree. You said your fingerprint, your thumbprint.
Yeah.
And, I think in order to be a great player, you have to identify who you are. Instead of, you're not going to become a robot. You're going to figure out, you're going to dissect you. You're going to take an inventory of who you are and what you can do. And, we preach that in here a lot. And you do that. You let the ball determine what you need to do. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
You're driven by ball flight, aren't you?
You are. Well, you were a low ball hitter that created a ton of spin. So you stopped the ball in the greens because you spun the ball an awful lot. And hit kind of a flat flighted shot. If we tried to take you and make you a high ball hitter, it probably was going to be very difficult for that to function. That's not how your swing worked. And when you're standing, I can see, TPC at Sawgrass behind you. When you're standing on the 18th hole and you're hitting 6-iron in the 18, you're going to hit that flat ball flight because that's what you're comfortable with, right? And that's the one you knew that was going to be just right in the right distance when you hit it. So I agree 100% with you. I think most of us, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and usually it's not that difficult to identify your strengths and weaknesses, but it's difficult to make your weaknesses better. That's where a good teacher comes into play. And my goal was always to, at the end of the year, figure out what I was good at and ride it, just like you were saying. Ride my strengths to become, to play well. The end of the year, let's identify what our weaknesses are and how do we make them better. The problem with that is, and I did it once or twice in my career, in order to make my weaknesses better, in order to try to get longer, in order to try to hit the ball farther, I had to use products that didn't spin that much, right? Higher launch, lower spin. And then all of a sudden I started hitting the ball a little bit more crooked. My misses were a little bit more off. My short game wasn't quite as good. My wedge game, I didn't have the control of my irons because I didn't have the spin. I did a couple of times in my career where I tried to take my weakness, which was my length, right, and make that stronger. But in the process, I took, trying to make my weakness stronger. In the process of doing so, I took my strength and made it worse. And you know what? Then I couldn't ride that strength anymore. I didn't play nearly as well. And I distinctly made that mistake once in my career. And I vowed I'd never do it again.
I preach it all the time in here. Chase is smiling right now because I tell everybody, I have never seen anybody turn their weakness into a real strength. I've seen them improve their weakness, but I have seen them destroy their game trying to make their weakness a strength because they sacrifice their strength.
Right.
And you just said it. So
couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
And one thing, I'd always struggled with that when Hal first said it, but with you guys, your strengths were so good that it's just like if Jordan Spieth doesn't putt as well or his wedge play is not as good as it was 3 or 4 years ago, it's very detrimental to his overall performance. And you got to be really careful because he got there with his thumbprint and he's trying to change it a little bit, and you can see the roller coaster that you know, that Jim, you went on trying to chase distance, and it completely, the line is so thin for you guys, right? Everybody's so good out there. And if if your strength deteriorates just a little bit, it can be, like I said, it can be very detrimental.
Yeah.
Biggest mistake, Jim, that you've seen amateurs make in pro-ams?
I mean, I can only pick one.
2 or 3, 3 or 4, 5 or 6.
Perfect. Two or three. I'd say that one. I think the average to poor player, the grips. I just see terrible grips. That's your only connection to the club. It's very difficult to make a good golf swing with a bad grip because you're not going to hit a good shot anyway. I would say I'm kind of shocked at how bad folks' grips can be. 2, I think most amateurs, they hear it over and over and over again, aren't realistic on how far they hit the ball. And so the way they manage their way around the course and the club selection they take, like, they'll be 155 yards and they'll hit 8-iron because if they just absolutely hit 1 out of 100 good, it might go 155 yards. When in all reality, they probably hit an 8-iron about 140 yards. And so I would go there. A 3, I would say that most amateurs are terrified of hitting the ball fat. And with that, I see in their iron play, I see that they always have the ball way too far back in their stance. And it causes and it can be in chipping, pitching, wedge shots, all the way through their irons. They're afraid to hit the big ball first, put the ball back in their stance. And with that, you see a lot of reverse pivots. I mean, if they were to go ahead and make a decent golf swing, they would dig a hole and hit the ball really low because it's so far back in their swing. So you see a lot of folks that kind of reverse pivot, end up on their right foot, trying to then help the ball up in the air. You'd almost be better off. And if I had something really heavy and I wanted to throw it, I wouldn't start on my left side and reverse pivot to my right to throw it, right? I'd load up all my weight on my right. I'd fall over to my left trying to throw it. They'd be better off putting the ball too far forward in their stance. At least they are now moving towards the target. They could create some power, some speed, and they'd get through the ball and hit the ball decent. How'd I do?
Nailed it.
I will say I'm a shitty teacher, so but anyway.
Well, between you and Hal, you guys have played more pro-ams than just about anybody else. So you've seen
we see a lot. We see a lot.
I have one quick little follow-up question. It's about a rumor about a course in Southwest Kansas that supposedly you're playing in a little pro-am or a little mini tour event, and some worker there came up and said that the range was only open for the players playing in the event. Is there any truth to that? Garden City, Kansas, maybe it might.
I played the event, Southwest Kansas Open.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't remember that happening, but I'm not going to say it didn't. How's that? I don't remember, but I will first and foremost say I have a terrible memory. But I don't remember someone ever saying that to me.
So you were at least there. We can put you in at Buffalo.
I was there.
Southwind.
I played that was my first year out of college. So before tour school in the fall, I played some Hooters tour events. I played the Kansas Open, Southwest Kansas Open, whatever I could get in, St. Louis Open, whatever I could get in. They had decent purse. I played to get some experience, but I did play. Nice golf course too.
Yeah, it is. Middle of nowhere, but great golf course.
This is true. I will say that driving from the Kansas Open to the Southwest Kansas Open, I was driving. It was dark. I went like an hour and a half on some highway, and I never saw another car. And it dawned on me, like I described it to my dad later. I was like, I could like drive off in a ditch in this farm field. I'm not sure someone would find me for a couple of days. Like it just seemed like there was nobody there.
All right.
Well, Jim, thanks for being on today. Just on a personal note, I've always admired you as a person, and I've really admired you as a golfer. What you got inside you has made you the player that you are. You're a testament to people that work hard, and you've been a workhorse your whole life, and you're a great man. And I'm proud to call you a friend, but I was proud to call you a partner at President's Cup. And we did play a couple of matches up there together, and I think we were pretty successful in them, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Well, I've always enjoyed it as well. I think the fact that we were with that Ben Hogan company for so many years together and played similar products and shared a lot of ideas about equipment and balls, and so having I guess having a good ball striker like you and a friend, and we could bounce some ideas off each other, which is really nice. Bernhard was the third. We were like the three partners in crime.
Yeah, that's true. Well, good luck this week. We really appreciate you being on the Be the Right Club Today podcast, and we're always pulling for you.
Thanks, y'all. I appreciate it. Thanks, Hal. Thanks, Chase.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, so I have to admit, it sounded kind of like a broken record when he was talking about strengths versus weaknesses. I know you saw me smiling and commented about it, but he literally sounded like he listened to you go on that rant about 10 different times and just repeated. Did you text him? Did you tell him?
No, but here's the truth. He and I danced on the same dance floor.
Yeah.
And we saw what was successful and we saw what wasn't successful. And, he talked about maturing in this. And part of maturing is understanding what works and what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And how quickly you get that really turns into dollars and cents when it comes to the PGA Tour.
Yeah. Remembering why you got there, how you got there. That's the thing we talked about even after we talked to Jim. If you're a 5 handicap, you have some strengths and weaknesses, but you're not world class in any of them. And so if you work on your weaknesses a little bit and get them a little bit better and your strengths go down a little bit, it's not, you might be a net gain. But if Hal Sutton goes to work on his short game too much and loses his ability to hit a mid-iron as good as you could hit it, or loses you lessen your ability to hit a driver, now your advantage, what got you there, you just lost it. And I really, you've been saying this for 4 or 5 years, and me being a snobby nose instructor thinking I can help everybody, I was like, I didn't struggle with it, but I had to think about it a little bit. And now I completely get it, because you guys had to be so good at one or two things to make it. And if you're just good at those things, you're a scratch golfer or a +2 handicap. You're not a +7 or an 8 like you guys were.
So trust me, anybody that y'all see win 10 or more times out there, they're world class at something. They are world class at something. And whatever that is.
Like, we're talking one of the best 10 or 12 players in the world. Like, there's not 10 guys that hit it straighter than he did when he was on his game.
That's my point.
Yeah.
And if he loses that, then he falls out of that category. And, Jim recognizes that, just like every other really good player that spends any time out there that turns into world class. They're gonna figure that out.
What did you think about? I thought he answered your question about his dad really well. I mean, he kind of touched on all the issues that we have to deal with, but then gave his dad a lot of credit for being able to kind of work through. And then he was also aware enough to know that like it was his fault early on when he was younger. Just like we see it with the kids, we felt the same way. And then realized just how much knowledge his dad actually had when he got of age.
That didn't really surprise me. I saw them together enough out there. I never saw them in any sort of tiff at all. Mm-hmm. And I've been in tiffs with people that were teaching me. Yeah. So, if anything, I would have always felt more comfortable to be in a tiff with my dad, because I knew he was going to love me anyway. Right. And, I felt like Jim and his dad had a great relationship. And, he paid the compliment of his dad being a great communicator, and I bring that up because this. I don't know how many people out there know that, but the art between the teacher and the student is the way the communication is working. Yeah. And that goes both ways. It's not just how the teacher communicates to the student, but it's also the feedback we get back from the student.
How the student's listening, and then also what information they're giving back to us. And I would say, if you had a Hall of Fame list of instructors, every one of them were great communicators. There was not one world-class instructor that didn't know how to communicate. There's a lot of really good swing guys or technical aspect. They know the technique, the mechanics really well, but if they can't communicate, they're only going to help 10% of their students, because they can't They can't say it in the different languages.
Yeah, they got to figure out. I mean, this is really the art. You got to communicate the way the student can understand it, not necessarily the way you want to deliver it.
That's exactly right. So, let's touch on the technology side. We kind of went down an interesting dive down TrackMan and looking at the different radars and all that stuff. It didn't surprise me that he had a radar. It also didn't surprise me that he didn't use it a whole lot. A little inquisitive about it, but protective. A little bit guarded about it. Kind of like how you were. You as a player would have been more guarded than when we first met. Because
I was done
you
playing.
kind of quit playing. Yeah. A little surprised he doesn't video more than he does. I was a little surprised by that.
Jim is over 50 years old.
Yeah.
And he played by feel more than he played by technology.
Yeah.
And he's more of an artist than he is a scientist. And it is what it is, Yeah. And after we did the podcast, I came in here and started thinking about ball data more than I did club data. Mm-hmm. And I had a better feeling because that's the way I lived by what the ball did, basically.
Yep.
And, I've gotten a little bit more aware of club data than maybe I should.
Yeah. And again, I think, just like Jim said it, you called TrackMan the drama box. If you think about, 1 degree on a radar is the size of a width of a piece of paper. Like, it's so minute, it's so small. And there could be error, radar error, let's say. It could have been a little bit off and doesn't know exactly right, and so what you guys had was the ball, and that's the only thing that really told the truth. But I do think that, and you agree with this, I mean, there's uses for it.
Absolutely.
And as long as we can, it goes back to the art of the communication. As long as we can filter it down into a way where the student is capable of accepting it and understanding it. And Bryson DeChambeau wanted everything, and then Jim would maybe want one number, and that's fine. So it's up to us as instructors to give it to them in the way they can handle it.
100% agree. And one of the things that I've finally come to grips with is, even though I teach, I'm a player first before I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
And I can't get myself out of that mold that I'm in.
Yeah.
And I take what I can out of the drama box.
Yeah.
And use it to try to help whoever I'm working with, but I still have in the back of my mind, as a player, what do I think?
Yeah.
And
and you would have to teach for 40 years to be a better instructor than you were a player. You know what I mean? You did the playing forever and became one of the best to ever play, and so I think that's what makes you unique and good good at this is you can help a really good player kind of get through some of the pitfalls that like I could obviously play, but not near at your level. And if I'm not careful, I could go too deep into this stuff and get people's mind in a muddied mess, and then they can't play at all.
Well, this is off the point here, but it's still pertinent. I was never a drill person whenever I was playing golf. I hated drills. I wanted to be in the action all the time.
Yeah.
I couldn't do something that didn't produce some sort of result. And it's amazing because I mentioned that I give lessons in here a lot of times for an hour, and they might not hit but 12 or 15 balls. I make them do drills. I make them do, not hit a golf ball so that they're not ball bound, and that we can push the limits of what they can do so they can see what it looks like on the video. Because I can push them, you can too, into areas that they can't get to when they're ball bound.
Yeah.
Hal Sutton, the player, wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And so I am branching out a little bit as a teacher, than more so than I was as a player. I just had to slip that in.
I like it. But Hal Sutton, the player, also again had a technical enough, and your mechanics, the ball was doing what you wanted for it to do enough times that we wouldn't have needed to break you down and do a bunch of drills.
So I'm going to throw this in because I think this is pertinent. I did not have the guts to ask Jim on camera about where his path was at. But I did after the fact. You think I ought to tell everybody where it was?
Well, I mean, he said it with a question mark about, he said he swings a little bit left, and he likes to hit a cut. So again, that
says left
should be right.
Yeah,
right? That's correct.
So, but my point in telling you this is he's not that concerned with that. He's actually concerned with where the ball is going.
He wants the ball to fade. He's not chasing a push draw like 99% of our students that come in here that want to hit a draw.
And there's one of the greatest players in the world right there telling you that. So I thought I'd throw that in at the end.
Yeah, he wanted to hit something that he was comfortable with and could commit to.
So he used the term, he wanted to block out the left side, and he knew his little pull cut, he was never going to hit it left. That is the mark of a good player, a great player, blocking one side of the golf course out that he doesn't have to worry about.
That's right. And it's funny, I pinch myself, getting to do these, getting to talk golf with legends of the game like you guys. And the deeper we get into it, the simpler it becomes. Create a golf swing that is repeatable enough, and then go believe, go commit, go be almost fooled into believing how good you are. And just go do it, and then go do it again, and then go do it again. And like Jim figured out, his one of his commandments was making sure his pre-shot routine was perfect. And you even said, it was interesting, you said this before we got on. We were waiting for him to join, and you said something about he was historically kind of known as a slower player because he was so meticulous behind the ball. And then he said, I spent decades perfecting it.
Yeah, well, he backed off a lot of times. If he knew it was off, he backed off, which is a really good point. We don't want to get into the habit of doing that, but at the same time, he's saying he knew when it got off, and he restarted it. How many times, are you just get over it? It's off, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway.
Yeah, what are my playing partners going to think if I back off again? Or, I've got the wrong club, but it's too far to walk over to the cart to get the right club. Then you hit a bad shot and you blame your golf swing.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, like I said, I pinch myself getting to talk to guys like that, and it's just awesome to keep hearing them say a lot of the similar things over and over. And it's the same thing you've been preaching from the mental game and the commitment and the pre-shot routine, and it's something that we're going to keep preaching until we're not preaching anymore.
Well, one of the things that I'm going to say is, I'm proud to work with this guy right here because technically he knows as much as anybody does about the game. And, I spent all my life, and I'm 63 years old right now, playing the game at a high level. So, Chase and I are just proud to bring all this to you. I'm going to keep calling on all my old buddies to come in here and give us what they know. If we can add up the accumulation of everything that all of us know, we brought a lot of knowledge to y'all.
So keep liking, keep commenting. We love the comments. We see them all. It makes it worthwhile for us to do this when we hear you guys say good things about what you've heard. Any suggestions, keep firing them away. We've got some awesome stuff lined up. And as always, thanks again for listening, and we will see you next time.